For today, I prepared a talk with the title Organic Solar Cells, Challenge and Perspective. My name is Markus Scharber. As mentioned, I've been working at the Johannes Kepler University since 2012, and before I was working for a company developing OPVs for quite some time. So I have industry background and also a little bit of university research background. The outline of my talk looks like this. So I'm going to give an introduction, which is essentially historic. I will talk a little bit about how OPV, well, one way to look at it, how OPV was invented or discovered. Then why organic PV? I think I can keep this very short. We had a very nice presentation in the morning. The motivation is there. I will talk about the challenges and perspectives a little bit from my point of view, and then I will try to give a summary. So I would like to start with, pointer doesn't work, so I need to, with this slide. So in 1995, Accounts of Chemical Research published a set of papers discussing the holy grails in chemistry. And at the end, you can see there are various different representations: room temperature superconductivity, or direct observation of electronic transitions, control of quantum phenomena, and so on and so forth. And there is one section on the bottom in green, which is artificial intelligence. So at the end, the goal is to mimic the process, the fundamental process in any organic, let's say, biological system, converting solar radiation into chemical energy and then storing it in a molecule. So at the end, if you look at this process, actually you can split them in two parts. There's the light reaction on the left side, so light plus water creates oxygen and a proton, and then there's the Calvin cycle on the other side, which converts carbon dioxide plus a little bit of additional chemistry into sugar. These are the two processes. And at the end, when you look at the situation, then the left-hand side is the more solar cell-like, so the light reaction, and I'm going to focus on this one, because if you look, this is now a very simplified sketch of the reaction center. Then what you find on the left-hand side, you find the P, which is the special pair, two chlorophyll molecules sitting very close to each other. They absorb essentially the light. Around this chlorophyll, there's an antenna system just collecting all the radiation coming in. And then what happens is upon photoexcitation, well, hard to see, sorry for that. So what happens is there's a so-called photoinduced charge transfer. Now going down, you see it on the right-hand side from the photoexcited P over various types of molecules to this blue quinone molecule, which is an acceptor. So and at the end, this reaction center is essentially a very advanced donor-acceptor system. And we heard it already in the morning. Also organic solar cells, they're essentially based on donor-acceptor systems. And the overall process, well, nature has a different goal. It's not about efficiency. For nature, it's important to separate locally the positive charge, which remains on the chlorophyll, and the negative charge on the quinone. They should be separated as far as possible. There is no recombination process possible, essentially because the recombination process may damage the entire structure. So nature does it, well, it harvests energy, but at the same time it's interested in the proton at the very end of the day, or the electron and the related chemistry to this one. So if you look at photosynthesis from a very general point of view, then it's quite surprising that people think about this process at all, because at the end it's not very efficient. So theory says the maximum power conversion efficiency is 11%. And if you look at typical plants, the energy conversion efficiency is even less than 1%. So at the end, if you now think about energy harvest, and we heard also about silicon solar cells and everything is about efficiency, why should you go and look into a process which is less than 1% efficient? Well, of course, this is not 100% true, because overall, if you look at specific stages of plant growth, you find that the efficiency can be significantly higher. And of course, the second part is there would be no need for an artificial system to go all the way from a photon to sugar, but at the end you could stop somewhere else and hopefully improve the power conversion efficiency a little bit. And It's a little bit surprising, but actually I showed you this Calvin cycle here, and the same gentleman received the Chemistry Nobel Prize in 1961 for this. And about the same time, what he started to do is he started to make solar cells. And at the end, what he did, this is now a sketch from the patent application. Actually, this is from the patent, which was granted in 1962. And this is the cross-section of a solar cell, where I have a donor, actually indicated in red. This is the structure over here. I'm sorry for that. And then you have an acceptor layer. They sit on top of each other. These are typically thin layers. On the front side, you have a substrate, which is transparent, so light comes from above. And on the back side, you have an electrode. So at the end, this is the structure. On the left-hand side, it's the issued patent. It's very, very interesting, because if you read this, it's a long time ago, but many, many features we have in organic solar cells today are already described in this patent. And on the right-hand side, this is the reference, or the title of the paper, published a little bit earlier in 1958, where they describe for the first time the structure. It's a little bit unfortunate, because the solar cell Cairns and Calvin prepared at the time was essentially not working. The power conversion efficiency was much, much smaller than 0.001%. So at the end, it showed some kind of photoactivity, but considering this a working solar cell is, I would say, very ambitious. And I think, well, about the same time, there was a paper published related to a completely different topic by Shockley and Quaiser, also in 1961, when they discussed the maximum power conversion efficiency of solar energy conversion for a material with a single band gap. And they calculate that the maximum power conversion efficiency can be 33 or 34%. So this is what you can do. And about the same time, somebody published a paper with 0.0001% efficiency. So it's pretty clear that the PV community was not very excited about the organic solar cells in the beginning. So then what happened, it took quite some time, but this is then, let's say, the next milestone, I would say, where Jing-Tang, at that time working at Kodak, published a solar cell using, again, a donor acceptor system shown on the right-hand side, and he reported a power conversion efficiency of about 1%, which was substantially better compared to everything we have seen before. And then shortly afterwards was already mentioned quite some work from the Santa Barbara group, where people found that this recently at that time discovered Buckminster fullerene, this C60 ball, is a very good electron acceptor, and they started making solar cells. And in 1995, they published a power conversion efficiency of about 2% or something like this. And then this figure we have already seen today, where you see the evolution of research cell efficiencies over time. And at the end, I plotted this chart again, taking the NREL numbers. I added the 1960 and the 1986 and 1992 or 1995 values already, and you see this evolution. And today we are very close to 20%, and it's only a matter of time before this 20% milestone will be reached. And this is also already discussed in the morning. It's quite interesting to see in the beginning, as soon as the fullerene acceptor was established, people developed more and more donor materials just to improve the efficiency. And at a certain point in time, people realized, or they understood, that there is a limitation. You cannot make fullerene-based solar cells which are more efficient than maybe 12, 13, 14%. People started using new non-fullerene acceptors, so-called non-fullerene acceptors. And this is now the next step, and everybody's hoping that we will move on and continue. So at the end, when you analyze all this work, what happened is that there was a lot of material science involved. So people made many, many different semiconductors, donors, and acceptors to finally come up with these high efficiency systems. It was also important to design the devices. So in the beginning, we had 2 electrodes and the semiconductor layer in between. This is completely insufficient. So you need to have good interfaces. You need to make sure that work functions are correct, et cetera, et cetera. The manufacturing was already discussed in the morning, is very important. Additives, the type of deposition process you use, et cetera, et cetera. And the last part, and I think this is one of the most important ones, is to understand the physics and chemistry. Because if you don't know what you're looking for, so if you do not understand the system properly, then it's very difficult to guide yourself through all the different possibilities you find ahead of you. And one thing mentioned already in the morning is nanomorphology, which is definitely one of the key things. So just to show you again how the cross-section of a typical organic solar cell looks like, on the right-hand side, you start with a substrate, then you have an electrode, an interface layer, a transport material we call it, and you have this reddish, this kind of nanostructure here, which is essentially the part where the donor and the acceptor are mixed together. And the way you mix them together, so on a nanometer scale, because the entire active layer is only about 100 nanometer thick, is the magic part. So additives and whatever can be used to grow domains of a specific size just to make sure that the solar cell is working very well. And then you have a set of other electrodes and eventually a packaging material on top. Now, this is the classical structure, and at the end, this is exactly what we are currently doing to get 15% plus solar cells on a regular basis. So the next slide I can keep short. Why OPV? So we have seen even very similar pictures in the morning. So at the end, everything in green, I think it's established. So people have demonstrated this. It's working very well. And at the end of the day, you can use it anytime you want. This light greenish, the recyclability and the low impact factor, environmental impact, there's still a little bit of a question mark. So at the end, there are systems around which can be processed with environmentally friendly solvents. You can do a lot of things. Everything considers this to be safe in terms of environment, but let's say the high performance cells are very often still based on chlorinated solvents, which may be problematic in terms of environment. And the orange ones, they are the difficult ones, the high performance. Okay, 20% is fine. I will come to that in a moment. Good durability. We heard already some numbers in the morning. At the end, it's super difficult to compete with silicon at the moment because 25 years is really, really challenging. And also the low cost. There are some systems which are potentially low cost, but at the end, the chemistry can be very expensive, let's put it like this. So now I would like to go one step further and just look at these four points: efficiency, lifetime cost, and environmental impact, just to round it up a little bit. So when you talk about efficiency, sorry for that. So I already showed you efficiency is good, but efficiency is good only for lab devices. If you look into products, we have seen some pictures today. Overall, the efficiency is still relatively low. So there's a big gap between research devices and what people can do on large machines. And this gap needs to be closed, because otherwise people go to conferences to talk about high efficiencies, and then somebody goes to a company and says, I would like to have a 20% module, and then they say, we are really sorry, we can offer you 5, and then everybody's disappointed. And the other thing, which is of course a real challenge, is to make large amounts of these solar cells. You need to have materials. And upscaling any kind of chemical compound is really expensive. So at the end of the day, there are currently only small companies working on scaling up these organic semiconductors, because the big ones say it's too expensive for them. And this might be also a little bit related to the fact that there is this big gap between the product and the research materials. However, just to show you one slide about our research, what is really, really interesting today is a PhD student who finished last year. Actually, he looked into D18. This is a donor polymer and 2 different acceptors, a non-fullerene acceptor and this classical fullerene acceptor. And the analysis shows we perfectly understand why the D18Y6 system gives us an efficiency of 17%, while the D18PC71PM shows only efficiency of 9%. And not only to say how we make a device and we study it, but we understand the fundamental physics and chemistry. Which simply means, and this is already the hope, or this is nowadays the hope, that based on this understanding, we can improve materials further and further to improve the power conversion efficiency. Next thing, environmental impact. This is a complicated story. So what is definitely true is there are no heavy metals used. So at the end, compared to perovskites, they use lead or tin compounds, which might be problematic. We only use organic stuff, so this is good. The manufacturing can be environmentally friendly. This is definitely the case. There's a very short energy payback time, predominantly related to the materials which are used and also the manufacturing process, which translates into a high energy return factor. So this is everything good. What is definitely not clear at the moment, already discussed in the morning, is that the end of life is still unclear. Just take the plastic foil and burn it. Well, this is most likely the simplest process, but there might be some valuable materials inside you would like to recover, and it's definitely, it would be much better to reuse the materials at a certain point in time. Okay, then let's go to cost. Sorry for that. This is, again, there's a good side. So at the end, if you look at the cost structure, the overall costs are dominated by the materials. This is exactly what we heard in the morning. This is good. The process to make them is essentially zero. So if all these components are cheap, at the end, also the solar cell will be cheap. Compared to OPV compared to silicon, OPV is still very expensive. Nevertheless, the costs for such semi-transparent devices or flexible ones which can be easily integrated into some objects are perfectly sufficient for various applications. So at the end, if you try to power a small sensor with an OPV module, that's perfectly fine. If you need to create kilowatt hours or whatever with your OPV module, then it's getting really, really difficult. And the other part is, when it comes to cost, everything is, of course, related to scale. And if there is no material upscaling, especially the semiconductors, they will be very, very expensive, which simply means that also the modules will be very expensive. Good. Then we talk about lifetime. At the end, we had an entire talk about packaging in the morning. So this is definitely something we need, but every solar cell needs this. Organic solar cells have stronger requirements in terms of packaging. They need to be nicely protected, especially against moisture and oxygen. And packaging can be expensive. This is definitely the part. We also know that there are different degradation mechanisms active at the moment in OPV, and there is a long list. I just put a few of them, which simply means we understand what is going on. So we can find countermeasures to avoid, for example, photochemical degradation. And the other part is, and we have seen some pictures in the morning already related to applications, the OPV stability is sufficient for many products. So you can integrate it into facades or into some other things, no problem at all. Companies do this, and apparently they also make a little bit of money with this. If you talk about 25 years in the field, this is a different story. So actually there is a market for OPV. There are products around which are good, but at the end of the day, several years are demonstrated, but not several 10 years or even longer. And what is a big challenge is we don't know what is finally limiting the stability. So at the end, nobody can stand up and say, we know that OPVs can be stable for maximum 25 years. We don't know this. There might be some intrinsic processes, and actually there are some indications that at the end there will be always some degradation, which definitely will limit the lifetime. But this is a little bit too early to tell. Okay, then this thing we have already seen, a couple of applications. You can buy them at the moment. There are also a few things from companies. So there's, interestingly, one in Brazil, Sanyo. They make tiny little modules for all kinds of portable applications. Former colleagues from ASCA, at the end they do facades facades and any kind of fancy structures. Heliatech was mentioned before. So you see there are various different applications already, which may or may not be very, very successful on the market. Many of them are often related to niche things. Okay, good. So summary. So what I kind of try to show you is that there is a relation between photosynthesis and organic photovoltaics. Well, at the end, did we find the Holy Grail? I don't think so, but the quest is on, maybe. And at the end, let's say, if all the predictions people made about costs, about efficiency, how easy they are to make, etc., come true, then at the end, this could be even very close to a Holy Grail, to have OPVs printed, roll-to-roll, whatever it is. So this is definitely the case. In terms of performance, I showed you that this is already very, very reasonable. So at the end, we have years of lifetime, we have reasonable efficiencies, there are already prototypes and applications around, which at the end can already support small companies to make business and also develop products and prototypes and everything else further. Okay, and actually this is everything I wanted to say. Thank you very much for your attention. And of course, if you have some questions, I would be happy to answer them.